Welcome to Silver Bar Stacker, folks. I hope everybody's doing well and enjoying their Sunday. That's right, folks. Today is Sunday, and it's a very special Sunday because it's a 3-day weekend for us to really pay homage to those who are no longer with us, especially our veterans who have, fought very, very hard for the freedoms that we have in this country. And so I think it's only appropriate that we kick things off with a moment of silence for those who are no longer with us. It's been an eventful week here for SBS. In the SBS household, I would say. SBS's father actually was a Navy veteran, and he just passed away this week as well. And just very timely, right? Like, it's just very timely. But he passed fighting very hard, and so he was very strong and he was very stingy. So we're going to have to carry along that legacy here at SBS. Now, over the past couple weeks, the SBS drops have, there's not been a lot of involvement in them. I would say like 3 weeks ago, we had quite a popular drop. We had 4 people involved, and so it was pretty cool because we were able to get a drawing going, and it was really nice to see some community involvement, and we even had some new faces that joined. I also have to acknowledge what it is that the products that we're focusing, right? Like, my father had an obsession with just being stingy, just generally, right? I think a lot of stackers can be stingy because they're penny pinchers. Sometimes they're penny stackers, right? And so I'm also a penny pincher. I pick up pennies anytime I've got a couple pennies lying around here that I just randomly picked up. There's a 1977 copper penny there. But I digress there. The point I'm trying to make is that my father's stinginess is not an uncommon trait when it comes to stackers in general. I myself am quite stingy. I like to store as much value as possible. Now, when it comes to how I like to store that value, maybe I become a little bit less stingy. I become a little bit flexible with how much I pay for certain pieces. But at the end of the day, I really, really like to just store the value. But I also have to acknowledge that my way of storing value is abnormal. Okay? Normal people, a normal stacker generally does not only go for higher premium stuff. They don't normally try to get like a million examples of the same thing, right? I have a weird stacking strategy, and that's okay. Everybody has their own unique stacking strategy, but what I have to acknowledge when it comes to my stacking strategy is that nobody's interested in this crap, okay? And I'm not calling this crap to say that it's crap, but nobody is interested in vintage. Are people interested in vintage? Yeah, they're interested in vintage. Are people interested in paying for vintage? No, they would just rather look at it. I can tell you that from experience because we have a website. We drive a decent amount of sales on there, but I would say that the sales could be much, much stronger. That could be improved with perhaps a little bit of better marketing, right? Now, when we do our weekly drops, I would say, I'll just be upfront with you, the last 2 drops, we've sold 0 units. 0 units over the last 2 weeks, and I'm saying that to bring to light the fact that there is no interest in this crap. I'm using crap in quotations because people view this as not worth it. It's not worth spending the money on. They have no interest in this. And why do they have no interest in this? Because they don't know anything about this stuff. They're just like, this is just a silver bar. Why would I pay whatever you paid, triple, quadruple, quintuple spot for something that's just collectible? Why is it collectible? I could go buy any other bar. Wasn't that collectible? So people may not understand why something's collectible. They may not appreciate the value of something because they don't understand the history behind it, right? There could be many reasons why there's a lack of interest in vintage silver and gold, but one thing can be definitively said is that there is a lack of interest in this stuff. I can tell you this not just from my experience, but from other people's experience of maybe posting a poll saying, hey, what kind of stuff do you prefer? And by and large, people will not prefer this kind of stuff because of the price that's attached to it, right? And so when I started this channel, I was set out to kind of accomplish one thing. It was not, in fact, when I started SBS, I don't actually recall how SBS ended up forming, because I started off solely as a stacker. I didn't have a YouTube channel, but I started kind of gaining interest in things. I started learning things from other YouTubers, and I started to get ideas of my own, and I thought, let me just start my own channel. And it kind of started shifting into something more a little bit educational, because I was learning stuff about the pieces that I was collecting. I was like, I would like to, share this knowledge with other people. And so we never even had a store when we first started the channel. It was really just about like, hey, this is some cool stuff, and let's just share the thoughts that we have behind stacking and what we're stacking, and maybe show off some of the pieces that we're stacking. So it was a lot of unboxing videos with kind of no direction. It was just kind of like, hey, look at all the stuff that we picked up. And some of that stuff I picked up with the intention of like, okay, in the future this will probably increase in value, so I might be able to sell some of this stuff. And some of that stuff I just thought to myself, like, yeah, others might appreciate this, because I was thinking about, okay, if I'm going to have to sell this to somebody, then maybe I might want to think about what they would want to purchase. And so I did buy certain things like that, like a lot of my Star Wars collectibles. I'm not personally like a big Star Wars fan, but I was just thinking to myself, these are kind of unique pieces. They're very, very unique pieces. I know there's a lot of people who like Star Wars, so why not just grab these unique limited edition Star Wars pieces while I can? And so that's how I kind of accumulated certain stuff with the intention of selling in the future. But a lot of stuff I just bought because I was like, okay, I'm going to store this value. I want to get the best price possible, right? So I would stack a lot of generics thinking, okay, I want to stack the best price possible with no intention of actually selling it, at least in the near-term future. Also, when it came down to vintage and stuff, that was kind of just for my personal collection. But as I started kind of getting more and more into the vintage and stuff like that, I started gaining more of an interest. I started thinking to myself, well, down the line, if I ever need to sell my stack, what am I going to do? How the heck am I going to get myself to sell my one and only Scotiabank bar that I have? I cannot do it. I won't get myself to do it, right? And so because of that, I started trying to think a little bit more long-term, like, okay, what is it that I could do to prevent myself from feeling like crap to have to get rid of something so beautiful? And so I thought, okay, well, if I have two of them, for example, then I would maybe not feel as bad getting rid of one of them. And so that's kind of like the strategy that I took, is that like, I would like to maybe stack a little bit more than I ultimately want to end up with, right? And that way, I won't feel so bad to get rid of stuff. And also, if I feel, because I personally felt, ever since I started buying, and even still, I still feel that this is like the best opportunity to buy silver when we're at historic lows. I mean, we've trended down, right? So we're at a low, we're at a bottom, and so I'm not saying that it's the bottom, but it's a good time to start averaging averaging in, right? And so for me, I've just always been buying. It doesn't matter the price. For me, I started buying when price was around $30 an ounce. So for me, that's the floor, right? For a lot of people, maybe $50 an ounce is the floor. So they're just buying. So the people that are sitting on the sidelines just waiting for a dip, that's fine. Feel free to wait for a dip. It all has to do with your personal stacking strategy, maybe your average cost, whatever it is. But I'm very, very comfortable buying. And for me, premiums are not really something that I even look at. I mean, I do look at the premiums, but I don't look at the spot price. Okay, for me, the spot price is just a general indicator of where paper shares are trading. And for me, the general price of silver is roughly $30 to $50 an ounce, but I actually value it at $100 an ounce. So if I get anything for under $50 an ounce, to me, the value comes from the actual piece that I'm picking up, right? For this, yeah, I love to pay $50 an ounce for this. No question, without hesitation. You ever give this to me, $50 an ounce? Boom, I'm taking it. You put a generic Buffalo round here, 1 ounce, even. I'm not going to even think about that at $50 an ounce. Maybe if it's like a 10 ounce high relief Buffalo round or something, then I might be like, yeah, I'll take 5 of those at $50 an ounce, right? But just the standard piece of silver, that's when generic price, spot price matters to me. When I'm dealing in really highly collectible silver that is extremely impossible to replace, I'm not thinking about the spot price at all. Okay, and the reason for that is because there's so much freaking history behind this. I've never ever in my life ever seen a bar like this. Never. This is a 250 minted bar. There's only 250 of these out there allegedly. Have you ever seen one of these ever? No, I've never seen one in my life. So 250 minted, maybe. How many are left? How many surviving examples of this are left? And mine's not available for sale, and I don't know if it's ever going to be available for sale until maybe I find another one of these. But since mine's not available for sale in the market, you're aware of one example. Okay, so there's a known circulating sample size of 1 for this bar. Let me know. You let SBS know. We've got a contact form on our website. Just hit me up. Let me know the next time that you run into somebody with, a Type 2 TD Bank poured 20 ounce bar that's 250 minted. Then we'll have 2 surviving examples. It's still probably 0 available for sale unless that person sells it to me, and then you'll have 2 not available for sale, or maybe I'll have 1 available for sale, but it'll be for a ridiculous price. And why will the price be ridiculous? Because I don't even want to get rid of this. Right? It's not actually available for sale, but everything has its price. But if there's only something that's very, very scarce and it's impossible to replace it, then the price is whatever the person who's selling it values it at. All right. Unless I even locate another example of this bar, it is not going to be available for sale. Okay, so that's why you won't see something like this necessarily on the SBS website unless I'm in some sort of mode of desperation. But I have many, many things that I would sell before I would ever allow this to leave my hands. You understand? So when it comes down to what I collect, there's the collecting stack, there's the stack that's available for sale, and what's available for sale is something that I might happen to have a couple examples of, right? So right here, you got a couple examples of Scotiabank. You got a couple examples of a Royal Bank. Now these right here, folks, 250 minted bars here. These are extremely rare bars, but I'm a very, very big collector of these bars. As you can see, I'm a big fan of the Royal Bank bars. The TD Bank 10 ounce bars as well. I'm a fan of these. These are the more common of the 10 ounce bars, but there's also another TD Bank 10 ounce bar that is, these are all the same. These are all TD Bank bars. If you look on the back, TD Bank, TD Bank, TD Bank. Here's a Scotiabank with an Engelhard logo on it. Whereas this is a Scotiabank with a JM logo on it. So the difference between these right here, 250 minted, actually this is now all Engelhard says this is 500 minted. This is 10,000 minted. Huge rarity difference between these. These come at a way heavier premium than this one. Still both very cool bars though. Check this out. Sequential serials. So 001149, 001150. So that's pretty cool. It's actually really cool. It's a different serial number, but I've got sequentials. I think I've got as high as a sequential set of 4 on the Scotiabank Engelhards. So that's pretty crazy. That's available for sale. It's my only set of 4 sequentials. Obviously, it's a 500 minted bar, so it's very, very difficult to locate even a 2 sequential, let alone a single bar. But I do have a 4 sequential on the Scotiabank Engelhards, which is insane. Check this one out. Now, this right here this one you saw, I think, a week or 2 ago. When I unboxed it, Engelhard TD Bank. So as opposed to there's 2 variations of the TD Bank Johnson Matthey. One has fine silver 999 and 3 lines. The other has fine silver 999 and 2 lines. The one that's on 2 lines is 250 minted. This one is a 500 minted bar. this right here is 1,000 minted bar, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is 1,000 minted bar, but I would say that it's far, far harder to find an Engelhard TD Bank bar as opposed to a Engelhard Scotia Bank bar. I've been able to grab more examples of the Engelhard Scotia Bank bars than the TD Bank bars, I would say. And that's funny because this is a 500 minted bar and this is a 1,000 minted bar, so that doesn't really add up there. So a lot of things you'll notice, as you start kind of collecting things a little bit more intensely, you'll start to notice, right, what mintages might be less accurate than other mintages. When it comes down to the prospector rounds, for example, those are 75,000 minted each year, but anybody who collects Engelhard prospectors knows that the 1983s are by far the most difficult to find and that the mintage is likely much, much lower than 75,000 on the 1983s. Even the 1987s sell at a premium. Even those are a little bit more difficult to find. So mintages are estimated mintages, right? Always kind of keep that in mind. When it comes down to gold bars, all Engelhard doesn't have any mintage information currently on gold bars. So something like this, an Engelhard 1 ounce gold Scotiabank bar, we have no idea on the mintage of that. But you've got a 1 ounce Scotiabank Engelhard bar here, or even a JM variety. This is the JM variety. Oh no, this is the Engelhard variety. But the Engelhard, the Johnson Matthey 1 ounce silver bars, those are all 1,000 minted. That's extremely low mintage. That's a tier 2 bar, according to allengelhard.com. All Engelhard states that anything under 500 minted is a tier 1. So tier 1 is very, very difficult to find. This right here is a tier 1 bar. Scotiabank is one of the few pressed Engelhard bars that is a tier 1 bar. That's why I love it so much. As soon as you go over 500 mintage, for example, now this falls into tier 2 category. Even though it's, in my opinion, should be classified as a tier 1, it's super, super hard to find this bar. But this right here would be a tier 2 bar because it's 1,000 minted. I think anything above 5,000 minted or so, I believe, then starts to fall into the tier 3 category, if I'm not mistaken. So you kind of, once you go onto All Engelhard, that's a really, really good starting point for you to get clued in on vintage, right? They kind of break down some of the main refiners. If you go to their definitive pages, they have different pages for different refiners, and obviously they'll have the most information on Engelhard, Johnson Matthey. Engelhard obviously is what they specialize in, right? So they'll have the most information on Engelhard pieces. They'll also have extensive information on Johnson Matthey pieces, but they have information by other refiners as well that are a little bit smaller. But that's just a small representation of all the refiners. There's so many different vintage refiners that you could collect from, and I would say, in addition to All Engelhard, another good resource would be Mineral Exchange. Mineral Exchange, maybe it's not as user-friendly to kind of go through the auctions and things like that, but they post some very, very rare and unique vintage pieces, I would say, on Mineral Exchange, and very, very difficult to find pieces. Now, Rob Sultan, he's the person who kind of runs Mineral Exchange. He runs basically weekly no reserve auctions, and these are some of the rarest pieces you'll probably find. This is probably going to be that's probably going to be your best shot at finding crazy rare poured pieces like this. He kind of specializes in kind of larger denominational and especially a lot of poured vintage silver, and so the really, really extremely rare stuff that quite frankly is a little bit out of my league. I specialize in the smaller denominational, usually not going up further past 10 ounces, right? I do got some 100-ounce bars, but I would not say that that's my specialty, and I would not say that I have extremely rare, highly collectible stacks and stacks and stacks of 100-ounce bars, because I specialize in a little bit more accessible things for people, for the masses, right? I like to specialize in things that people would actually be interested in buying, right? I'm not gonna have a 10-ounce brick of gold that's highly collectible vintage sitting on my store, because that would sit on my store probably till the day that I die, right? So I certainly like to keep things a little bit more accessible, tangible for my customers, and that's fine, because there is a market obviously for that higher end stuff. It's just not for me. It's a little bit too, it's a little bit too high risk and just a little bit not my cup of tea personally. But the reason I bring up Mineral Exchange is because that's a very, very nice place to go where you can get a lot of historical information on auctions that have closed, and on just to learn a little bit about some of the more obscure vintage pieces and just try to find the historical data on some of this stuff. So getting into vintage can be very, very fun, but it requires a lot of research. It requires you to educate yourself a little bit about the pieces that you're collecting, and it requires you to keep a keen eye on potential red flags, right? Because there's a lot of freaking scammers out there. And I'm just going to bring that point up because a few days before my father passed this week, I actually got swindled in a freaking Instagram scam. So the way that it all went down was I actually was just minding my own business on Instagram. I'm not really too into Instagram. I'm kind of new to Instagram, I would say. So I don't know my way around it very well, I would say. I'm an Instagram noob, one could say. And so I was just minding my own business on Instagram, and all of a sudden I got a buddy of mine to kind of tag me, very, very trusted member of the community. So thought nothing of it, and he tagged me in a post of a image of some freaking crazy, crazy rare bars. Some Engelhard bars, and I was just like, holy crap, I've never even seen these. I didn't even really realize they existed, and then upon doing some research I came to realize, holy crap, these are actually very, very rare bars. And I actually did the full-on research. I went on the Mineral Exchange. I found that, oh crap, a couple of these have sold for like $2,500-$3,000 for a freaking bar. Crazy, crazy rare bars. And so I was just like, wow, that's crazy. And I even went so far as to reach out to All Engelhard. I literally messaged them and I was like, hey, just came across this somewhat questionable posting, but it seems to be very, very rare bars, and I just wanted to make sure that they were legit. And I actually got a reply from All Engelhard pretty quickly stating that, like, yeah, those are legit. We've actually logged those exact serials in our registry many, many years back, and so those are actual authentic bars, and they're very rare and very beautiful. And I was just like, holy cow, I just got the affirmation from All Engelhard that these are legit. And so I started getting into a conversation way over my head. The guy tapped into my he tapped into my family. He tapped into so many things to gain my trust, and I don't know how the heck it happened, but after a freaking half an hour after speaking to him, he gained so much of my trust that I'm sitting here e-checking him freaking $900 for these bars without any exact confirmation of anything. I got so excited because I saw these bars, and because I thought I had vetted things, that I was blinded by all the red flags in hindsight. Once I had sent that money, I instantly thought to myself, maybe I should vet this a little bit better. Maybe I should get a second opinion. And at that point, it was too late. This person, represented themselves as someone else, and ultimately took that $900 from me, swindled me out of it. And by the time I figured it out, I contacted the bank. I kind of let them know what happened, and they were of no help. The transaction was made through Zelle, right? And so that's like an instant transfer, instant bank transfer. It's not like a credit card. Now, Zelle, I believe, from my understanding, is kind of conglomeration agreement between all these big banks, and so they're owned by the banks, and so the banks are not going to help you when the banks own what it is, the product that is assisting you. So Zelle, you have to be very careful, folks, on Zelle. If you're sending instant payments with Zelle, PayPal, it doesn't matter. You will eventually get yourself into a scam, and the only reason I'm saying that is because Instagram is widespread. Okay, I had no idea, but as I started researching, I was just like, holy cow, the scams are rampant on Instagram. And it's not just Instagram, but the fakes are rampant out there too. You've got a lot of these sites from overseas just mass producing these clad bars that are made to look vintage, generic, whatever. They're not real silver. And so you really, really, really need to start thinking about very hard about buying from trusted suppliers, right? After this one incident happened, like I left up my guard here. I let FOMO get the best of me, and I shouldn't have. I never ever deal with shady people like that. I never deal with an untrusted supplier, ever. I always vet them. I always get a reference. I always get multiple references, and I always read reviews, and I do my due diligence, and I let up my guard this time, and FOMO got the best of me. And so you need to be very careful when you're dealing, especially I would say direct P2P deals on Instagram, things like that. You got to be very, very careful. I'm sure many of you have found very reputable Instagram sellers, but I've got to say, honestly, I'm very motivated to start selling on Instagram only because I feel that is an unsafe marketplace. I feel it's a very unsafe marketplace to buy and sell, at least based off of my experience. I've had a few limited experiences on Instagram, and the experiences have not been good. There's a lot of shadiness on Instagram for sure. So always vet the source that you are buying from, right? You got to be able to have somebody who can test the bars, right? You got to have somebody who you can trust. So at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Always be very, very conscious about who you're dealing with, how you're dealing with them, and who you're trusting, okay? Because I don't wish this, what happened to me, to happen to anybody. And so because of what happened, I'm freaking done buying just generally, because at the end of the day, when I set out to build my stack, I built it in such a way that I had much, much more than I wanted for my long-term stack. Now, most people, when they stack a little bit at a time, and they slowly build their stack. The way that I stack, it's a little bit opposite, okay? I like to ape huge amounts of silver, even more so than I intend to hold for my long-term stack. And guess what, folks? I've done that. This is not my full stack of silver. This is my collection of silver, vintage, and gold bank bars. Okay, so this is my full stack of TD Bank, Scotiabank, Royal Bank, vintage bars. Okay, this just happens to be one of the many hundreds of things that I like to collect, and so I have quite a big stack of silver and gold that I would say is much bigger than I would want to keep, that I want to leave this earth with. You know, my father passed this week. He left not with this much silver, and I also intend to not leave with this much silver. I bought this much silver because I like the idea of having these pieces, being able to preserve this value, and being able to share this in the future with those individuals who appreciate these pieces as much as I do. Now, in order for somebody to have a level of appreciation for pieces like this as much as I do, because I very, very much cherish these pieces, I love these pieces. So for somebody to have the same level of appreciation of these types of pieces, I think I need to stop selling this stuff and start simply educating people about this stuff. And so from here on out, I've decided that we're going to be discontinuing the weekly SBS drops for the foreseeable future. And the reason for that is because I feel that those are a little bit premature. We are not in the business right now of pushing silver, right? We're in the business of educating people about silver. I like this stuff, and so I want you to learn about this stuff. I don't want you to buy this stuff. I like this stuff. I bought this stuff for myself, and I would like to keep it. If you would like any of these pieces, you can definitely get in touch, and I can part with the freaking TD Bank bar or whatever, right? That's not a problem, right? The YouTube community is here not for me to sell to. I do sell very, very high volume on many other outlets. I have multiple strategies for selling through my stack. This stuff is kind of part of my long-term stack, so we don't really actively sell this stuff too much. You see some of this stuff on the website. It's pretty high premium stuff. But we have a lot of stuff that's a little bit more reasonably priced that we're kind of constantly cycling through, right? And so we have a big inventory of products ranging from very, very common, very low premium to much, much higher premium stuff. And certain stuff that we don't have like duplicates of, for example, like these are 2 one-off bars. Things like this, they're probably not going to be available for sale. Obviously, like everything has a price attached to it, right? If you really wanted this bar desperately, right, you needed this. Maybe you have like a big stack of 10 of these or something and you're like, I really need that 11th SBS. Okay. Please tell me your circumstances. There's a possibility I can maybe give this up. I really would not like to give this up. This is a very special bar. I bought this from one of my most trusted suppliers who has actually helped fill a huge part of my Canadian bank bar collection. And so this is a very special bar to me because the person that I bought it from, I told him I was going to preserve this. I'm likely never going to sell this. It's going to be kept in a very, very good home. Okay, so I would only give this up to somebody else if I'm like confident that that's an equally good home and that they would appreciate it and treat it the same way that I would. Okay, so some of the stuff here is curated for the personal stack. Other stuff, while it is for the personal stack, I'm also willing to maybe get rid of a couple examples, right? And so I think the shift in mindset that we're going to have is we're getting rid of the weekly drops because, you know, the last 2 weeks nobody took part in them. Okay, I would advise that like you should always look out for deals, right? When it came to the SBS weekly drops, we had really, really good deals on there, and so the people who took advantage of those deals really got a killer deal, whether they realized it or not. In the future, maybe they might realize like, wow, looking back, oh crap, that was actually pretty cool. I got that Engelhard bar for like $35, right? So they might appreciate that maybe down the line. Right now, I don't think people appreciate it. They just kind of look at like, oh yeah, I got involved in the drop and got something out of it, right? That was a fair value. But actually, the stuff that was on the drops, a lot of times we were losing money on that stuff. A lot of times we were losing money, and many, many times we're basically just breaking even on that stuff. And that was really just there as like, okay, here's like a way for us to kind of get the community involved, get their feet wet with a little bit of vintage, and give back, right, to the community that's supporting us directly. Because the YouTube community is not really, those are our friends. Like I like to just shoot the shit with people in the community. I like to talk to people who are like-minded. I like to share interests, right? I'm not really looking to like sell stuff, right, actively to the community. And so I'm really here more to act as a guide. And so there are certain things that I'm very interested in. Engelhard vintage, Johnson Matthey vintage, USVI vintage, Sunshine Mining vintage. There's a few products, a few specializations that I have that I'm very much interested in. If you have questions about those, I might be able to fill in some of the gaps that maybe you might not be able to find on, let's say, All Engelhard, for example. I might have some additional information potentially that All Engelhard doesn't, because these are bars that I very, very much love. Canadian bank bars is just one example. I hate banks, so I like to be my own bank by collecting bank bars. That's kind of the mindset behind that. TD Bank doesn't like that. Every time that I mention TD Bank, they really, really find it annoying, I think. In fact, in a recent video, I actually tagged TD Bank just in a hashtag. It wasn't like they were the focal point. I just put a TD Bank hashtag in my video, and they literally like reported that video. And like, I don't think the video was taken down, but it might have been. It might have been a short. I think it might have been a short that was taken down or something, but literally because I hashtagged TD Bank and they didn't like what I was saying, they blocked my video. And I guess they had a right to do that, according to YouTube red tape. But it's just funny, man. Like, one of my most viewed videos, I was looking at it the other day because I was going through unanswered comments, and somebody commented on it. There was a video where it was called TD Bank Full Stack Fuck Banks. And at the time, I was just like annoyed, I think, at payment processors and stuff. And I also had bought a big stock of, not a big stock, but just I had overpaid for a bunch of TD Bank generics from a bunch of resellers. Like TD Bank generics, you can get those pretty easily at the bank if you're from Canada. And so I just had like, a decent amount of TD Bank generic bars that I just laid on the table. And so I got a comment from somebody like, oh, you can really tell when somebody doesn't have a lot of silver. And I'm like, dude, I'm not even trying to show off all my silver. That's not the point of this full stack video. I'm just showing this because I freaking hate that I bought a bunch of overpriced TD Bank generic bars, right? When I'm actually into the TD Bank vintage bars, right? And I'm not showing this full stack of bank bars to show you how much silver I have. This is just the focal point that I felt I would keep for today's video, because I wanted to show you some silver, right? And I want to maybe teach you about a couple of these pieces while we happen to be having an open discussion about Memorial Day and scammers and untimely passings. So this is really just a rant and rave about whatever the heck is on my mind, because I've had a rough week and I really didn't want to spend the time to do another drop, quite frankly, because there's not been very little involvement. And because there's little involvement, I really had to just sit down and think about the business and really think about what I need, what decisions I need to make to move forward and have this thing be a success. Because obviously, like, if there's no involvement, then what's the point of even doing the drops? People aren't interested. I don't want to pressure people into that. And so I think the reason for that, after I sat down and thought about it, was that, hey, you know, one, we need to just focus on education for the YouTube channel. And so now that's going to be the primary focus. You're not going to really see a whole lot of like drops or flash sales or anything like that being promoted on the YouTube channel. It's really primarily going to be focused on educating. And so I'll try to find a topic to discuss each week. At least once a week we'll try to kind of meet together and just discuss. You know, I haven't had a chance to go deep into the bank bars with you for this video, but I just kind of showed you what's on the table here. Maybe we can break this down into a few different segments where we maybe focus on one particular type of bar, right? For example, we might just focus on all of the Canadian bank gold, for example, one day. And I think that will be a better way to go about it, because then individuals who are watching the channel will just kind of learn about the pieces rather than being told, hey, this is where you go buy it. You know, you'll figure out where to buy the stuff, how to source the stuff, once you kind of gain an interest in it and you start looking around and you start researching, you start assessing the market. That stuff will come later, I think. So that's number one. My number one change for the business is that YouTube is going to be less focused on sales and more focused on education. The second thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to be putting a more concerted effort on marketing and scaling the business. Okay, so right now we do quite a good amount of sales. I would say that on any given day, on a random Wednesday, on a random Tuesday, on a random Thursday, I might have maybe 5 to 10 orders that I have to ship out. That's pretty good. That's some consistent support, I would say. That's very, very nice. It's a lot of support. It kind of keeps things a little bit sustainable and allows me to be able to keep doing what I'm doing without having any support, you know, any direct support. That's without any support on the drops, right? So like we had zero involvement, absolute zero people got involved on the drops these last 2 weeks, yet we kind of had 5 to 10 orders kind of going at any given time across all the platforms that we kind of expand on. And so what I would like to do is I would like to expand that a little bit further. And so I'm going to make a concerted effort to, one, market ourselves a little bit better and get in the eyes of everybody a little better. You see our videos, they tend to be very, very long. We don't have a lot of shorts. I was viewing my business partner's son's YouTube channel the other day. He's got a relatively new channel, and he's been killing it, man. He's been killing it. He's got, you know, dozens and dozens of shorts that have thousands of views, and I'm just comparing him to myself, thinking like, wow, I'm clearly doing something wrong. I'm not putting together engaging content. So I'm gonna try to get the content a little bit more engaging, try to make sure that it's a little bit more succinct so that it's a little bit more digestible, and I'll have it be very interesting so that you're kind of learning new things. Okay, and that's the goal for YouTube. I'm also going to try to help myself scale this business by marketing a little bit better. So I'm going to be putting a little bit more effort into the marketing, both on social media, and I'm also going to be scaling the business on other platforms. So you may see SBS represented not just on the store, but you might find that we are represented on other platforms as well. We're going to start trying to expand the reach a little bit. And that might include Instagram in the future too. I'm so sick and tired of these Instagram scammers that we're going to have to maybe create like a healthy place where we can run some sort of like auctions or, you know, just bin listings or something like that. So that's also in the pipeline. It may not be like on the Silver Bar Stacker Instagram page or whatever, but I think that it's very important that we start scaling a little bit and just educating the masses about vintage silver. Because without an understanding of what it is that you're collecting, there will never be any interest in buying this stuff and preserving this stuff. And I think preservation of this vintage is extremely important, personally. That's really the name of the game. That's why this is such a big hobby of mine, I would say, at the end of the day, because I don't want this stuff to get put into the melter. Okay, I don't. And I think that's still happening to this day. These very, very rare examples, even to this day, are just being thrown out. People are not appreciating them, and so it's very, very important for me to preserve this history. So, anyways, I thank you all for tuning in today's episode. It's very unfocused, but hey, my mind's on a lot. Have a good one.